My name is Miller. They told me my dad died in a car crash when I was 9. I believed it, until I found his face on Facebook, smiling, alive. And less than an hour away. What I uncovered next shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, and myself. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster of lies, betrayal, and redemption, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that hits deep. Grab your headphones, settle in, and get ready, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at family forever. I was 9 the day Mom told me my dad was dead. We were sitting at the wobbly kitchen table on Pine Street in Claremont, New Hampshire. The air smelled like boiled carrots, and a Red Sox game murmured from the living room where Ron, my stepdad, was nursing a beer like always. Outside, snow had started to fall in lazy spirals. It was the kind of afternoon you don't forget, even when you wish you could. Denise, my mother, but she always insisted I call her Denise, folded her hands across the table like she was preparing to deliver a weather report, not rewrite my entire life. Eli, she said, eyes darting anywhere but my face, you've been asking about your father. I nodded. I'd asked a lot lately. Where was he buried? What was his name? Why didn't we have any pictures? She took a breath, like the line needed oxygen. He died when you were real little. Car accident, snowy road, way up near Montpelier. You wouldn't remember. It was quick. And peaceful. Her words clanged around in my head, but nothing stuck. I didn't cry. Not then. I just nodded and whispered, okay. I wanted to believe her. I think, deep down, I needed to. Because the only other explanation was unthinkable. For the next few years, that story was gospel. Ron never brought it up, but he'd grunt in agreement if I ever mentioned it around him. He'd been around since I was 3, big and broad and always smelling like gasoline and chewing tobacco. The town saw him as a provider. I saw him as a wall, solid, cold, and impossible to talk through. My mom acted like the story had closed a chapter, but for me, it cracked something open. A gap in my chest that never quite healed. I'd look in the mirror and wonder who I looked like. It wasn't Ron. His nose was too crooked, his chin too square. I didn't match either of them. On my 10th birthday, I asked Denise if I could see a photo of my dad. She stiffened as she stirred boxed mac and cheese. All the old stuff's packed up, she said. Water damage in the basement ruined most of it. Another answer that wasn't really an answer. Still, I let it go. What choice did I have? In a town like Claremont, where everyone knows everyone and questions carry weight, silence becomes survival. So I stopped asking, but I started noticing, the way Denise flinched when the phone rang after 9 p.m., the way Ron snapped when I asked about Vermont, as if the entire state was a curse word, the way my last name, Miller, never quite felt like it belonged to me. There were cracks in the story. Tiny ones. Hairline fractures, and even at 9, I could tell when something was broken, especially when everyone was pretending it wasn't. I didn't know it yet, but the biggest lie of my life had just been told, and one day, I was going to break it wide open. It had been years since I thought about the lie, not the way you forget, but the way you bury something alive and pretend it's gone. At 26, I was living a quiet, mostly invisible life, tech support by day, freelance graphic work at night, and the occasional Sunday dinner with my mom's sister, Aunt Carol. She was the only one in the family who didn't make me feel like a ghost walking through someone else's house. That weekend, she'd roped me into helping clean out her attic in Lebanon. Her knees had gotten bad, and she hadn't touched the upstairs since her husband passed. The attic smelled like mothballs and old furniture. Dust clung to the air like fog. I was halfway through hauling down boxes when I found it, wedged behind a pile of Christmas decorations, inside an old milk crate labeled keepsakes. Inside was a high school yearbook. Class of '85. I thumbed through the yellowed pages absent-mindedly, not expecting much. Then I saw it, a black and white senior portrait, Tommy R. Whitaker, hair thick and swept back, grin lopsided. The name meant nothing, but the eyes. I leaned in, same shape. Same color. Even the way his left eyelid dipped ever so slightly, just like mine, I kept flipping. Found his name again under wrestling team, then again near the back, voted most likely to make you laugh. My stomach turned. Hey, Aunt Carol. I called. She was in the hallway, sorting linens. Yeah. Who's Tommy Whitaker? Silence. She didn't even pretend to think. She just said, flat as a slammed door, no one you need to worry about. I didn't say anything else. I just tucked the photo back into the crate and helped her finish. But something had been lit in my chest, a slow, creeping burn. That night, I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles. Tommy R. Whitaker, the name spun with it. At 2:13 a.m., I got out of bed and pulled up Facebook. I typed in the name. It took a while to find the right one. There were dozens. But only one lived in Vermont. Brattleboro. 45 minutes away from Claremont. The town Denise always swore had nothing worth visiting. His profile was public. The first photo was recent, maybe a year old. He was holding a toddler in a backyard, sunlight hitting his silver-streaked hair. My stomach flipped. The resemblance was no longer subtle. He looked like me, or rather, I looked like him. Everything about the photo screamed familiarity. The nose, the eyebrows, the half-smile that always felt out of place on my face. I clicked through his profile. Family barbecues. Fishing trips. Comments from friends and a woman named Kim, his wife, maybe, and then, a caption that stopped my heart cold. Best part of being a dad again. Again, that word echoed louder than anything Denise ever told me, and in that moment, I knew, she lied. He was alive, and I was done pretending not to care. The light from my laptop screen made the rest of the room feel hollow, like I was floating inside a secret. My finger hovered over the message button on Tommy R. Whitaker's profile. I had no plan. No script. Just questions that had clawed their way back from the dead, but something held me back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was loyalty to a woman who didn't deserve it, so I didn't use my real name. I made a burner account, E. Harris, with a random profile photo and no friends. I figured if he ignored me, fine. If he blocked me, so be it. But if he responded, I wasn't ready to be Eli Miller just yet. I typed, "Hi, sorry if this is random, but I'm doing some genealogy research. Did you ever know someone named Denise Whitaker?" I hit send. Closed the tab. Tried to sleep, failed. The next morning, I opened Facebook before I even got out of bed. A red notification sat there like a heartbeat. Tommy R. Whitaker has replied. I clicked. Denise Whitaker. Is this about my son? I read the sentence 3 times. My son. The floor felt like it vanished beneath me. She vanished when our boy was still a toddler. I looked for years. Cops, PIS, even went to her sister's house in New Hampshire. Slammed the door in my face. Everything inside me went still. She didn't run to protect me. She ran to erase him, and she succeeded. I never stopped wondering where they went. Tommy wrote next. It's haunted me for over 2 decades. I stared at the screen so long the text blurred. He hadn't just been alive, he had wanted me. Searched for me. Fought for me, all while Denise spoon-fed me bedtime lies and taught me how to grieve a man who never died. My fingers shook as I typed my next message. I think I'm your son. The typing dots appeared instantly. What's your name? I hesitated. Then deleted the fake account. It was time. That night, I used my real name and sent him a friend request from my actual profile. A minute later, he accepted. A message popped up before I could blink. Eli. I replied, yeah. You okay, son? Son, 2 decades without hearing that word from the right voice. I told him everything. About Denise. Ron. The garage I used as a bedroom until I turned 16. The vague answers. The yearbook photo in the attic. His responses came fast but thoughtful. Rage bubbled between the lines, but so did grief. And something else, hope, we agreed to meet the next weekend in Brattleboro. Neutral ground. As I shut my laptop, heart pounding, I knew I had just stepped off the edge of something huge. The truth wasn't behind me anymore, it was ahead, and I was going to walk straight into it. The first thing I noticed when Tommy walked into the diner in Brattleboro was how his eyes darted around like he half expected someone to snatch him back into the past. I'd picked a booth in the corner, far from the windows. When his eyes finally met mine, he froze, then he smiled, a soft, quiet sort of smile. The kind people wear when they see someone they've missed their whole life but aren't sure they're allowed to touch. Eli, he said, almost like he was testing it aloud. Tommy, I replied, we didn't shake hands. He just slid into the booth across from me and stared like he was trying to memorize my face. You look just like your mother, he said. Then after a pause, but your jawline? That's mine. The server came and went. We didn't eat, instead, he talked. And I listened. He told me they were young. Stupid, maybe, but in love. He'd proposed. She'd said yes. But once I was born, things changed. He didn't know why, only that she got quieter, more withdrawn. Then one day, he came home to an empty house. Crib gone. Clothes gone. Her number disconnected. I thought maybe she was scared. Postpartum stuff, maybe. Or she thought I wouldn't be a good dad. But I never gave her a reason to run, Eli. Not one. He said he filed a missing persons report. Hired a private investigator. Even tracked down her sister, Carol, the same Carol I'd helped in the attic a week ago. When he showed up at her door, Carol told him he had the wrong house and threatened to call the police. After a year, I started thinking maybe she was dead. Or maybe you both were. I looked down at the table, my hands clenched into fists beneath it. She told me you died in a car accident, I said. She even had a whole story. Snowy road near Montpelier, peaceful, fast. Tommy laughed, but it was hollow. That's poetic. Almost admirable. Except it was a damn lie. I asked him why he stopped looking. He said he never really did. But after years of dead ends, it felt like trying to find a shadow in a storm. I thought maybe you'd come find me one day. And here you are. I should have felt grateful. I should have wept, or hugged him, or walked away. Instead, I felt cold. A deep, growing chill that started in my spine and spread outward. Denise had stolen not just a father from me, but a life. She'd watched me grow up with a man like Ron and never once flinched. And Carol, who hugged me every Thanksgiving, had slammed the door on the man I came from. I left the diner with Tommy's number in my phone and a tight hug I didn't know how to return, but as I drove back to Claremont, I knew one thing for sure, this wasn't just about the past anymore, it was about what came next. The day after I met Tommy, I sat across from Denise at her kitchen table, the same one where she'd told me my father was dead. She stirred sugar into her coffee like nothing had changed. Like everything she built wasn't balancing on a single, unraveling thread. I wanted to scream. I didn't. Everything okay, Eli? She asked, looking at me over the rim of her mug. I nodded. Yeah. Just tired. I watched her closely. Every word. Every blink. I searched for guilt. For regret. For something, but Denise Miller had spent her whole life lying with Grace. I said nothing. Because words could be denied. Twisted. Forgotten. Instead, I drove to Brattleboro the next weekend and met Tommy at a clinic. We didn't say much on the way in. He signed his paperwork with a hand that trembled just slightly. I did the same. We sat side by side while they swabbed our cheeks. You nervous? He asked. I shook my head. No. Just need it in writing. It took a week. When the envelope arrived, I didn't even open it at home. I took it straight to Tommy's. We sat on his front porch as I tore it open. 99.998% match. He stared at the page for a long time, then exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for 26 years. I knew, he said. The moment I saw you walk into that diner. I knew. I wanted to say it back. To tell him I'd felt it too. But the truth was, I was too numb. I'd grown up in a house of silence. In a garage with peeling paint and lies taped to the walls. The truth was loud now, too loud, but it also brought clarity. I started going to Tommy's every weekend. At first, it was awkward. Small talk. Stories about his younger kids. Then it turned into something steadier, working on his old Ford, watching local football games, sharing memories I didn't actually have. He never once said a bad word about Denise. But I could see the pain in the way he watched me, as if trying to calculate the years lost between us. Meanwhile, back in Claremont, I said nothing, not to Denise. Not to Carol. I nodded at Ron when I passed him in the driveway. I smiled through small talk and Sunday dinners, but inside, I was building something, not a scene. Not a blow-up, a moment, a quiet storm, because Denise didn't deserve a warning, she deserved the weight of the truth dropped at her feet, cold. Undeniable, and final. I wasn't going to yell, I wasn't going to fight, I was going to show her, and when the time came, there'd be no question left in the room, just silence, and everything she thought I'd never find. I told her it was a thank you dinner. "You've done so much," I said over the phone. "Always taking care of me, even when I didn't make it easy. I just want to return the favor." She sounded touched. "That's sweet, Eli. Where are we going?" "Friend of mine just outside Brattleboro," I said casually. "He's got a great setup, private, quiet." She hesitated. "Brattleboro?" I waited a beat. "Yeah." "Why?" She recovered fast. "Nothing, just haven't been out that way in years." "Perfect, I arrived first. Tommy and I had everything ready, table set, lights low, nothing fancy, just comfortable." He was nervous, kept wiping his hands on his jeans, pacing. "She's gonna flip," he muttered. I nodded. "That's the idea. We didn't need revenge with screaming and slamming doors. Just a door opening, and the right face on the other side." At exactly 6, her car pulled in. She stepped out in her usual blend of casual and control, sweater tucked in just right, necklace matching her earrings. She even brought a pie. She smiled as I opened the door. "Well, aren't you fancy tonight? Come on in." She stepped into the entryway, eyes scanning the home. Cozy place. "Who's your friend, anyway?" Before I could answer, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Tommy appeared. Denise froze. Her pie slid slightly in her hands, and I watched her fingers grip the edges tighter. "Denise," he said softly, like saying her name pulled something sharp from his chest. Her eyes didn't blink. "Tommy." She said it like a ghost had walked in. He smiled. Not warmly. "Just enough to say this isn't a dream, and you can't run now. I believe you two know each other," I said, stepping aside so she could see the photo on the hallway wall. Me and Tommy, side by side, arms around each other at a Lake Spofford cookout just a week ago. The silence was suffocating. She started, then stopped. "I don't know what this is, but..." "It's dinner," I said. "The kind families have when they've got unfinished business." Her jaw tightened. "Eli, I can explain." "I'm not here for explanations," I replied. "I'm here for truth. You told me he was dead. You let me grow up believing I didn't have a father. And the whole time, he was 45 minutes away." She looked at Tommy, maybe hoping he'd break, play the gentleman, give her a way out. He didn't. "I begged your sister to let me see you," he said. "I thought you both were dead. You left without a word." She tried to compose herself, her mask cracking at the edges. "You don't understand the choices I had to make." "No," I said. "But now you'll have to live with the ones I made." I stepped aside and motioned to the dining room. "Dinner's ready." She stood there, trembling, caught between two chairs, one of guilt and one of exposure, and for the first time in my life, I watched Denise Miller lose control, and I didn't lift a finger. The sound of silverware tapping plates was the only thing filling the room. None of us had touched our food. The roast was perfect, the vegetables roasted just right. But it might as well have been stone. Denise sat with her back stiff, hands folded on her lap like she was waiting for a verdict in court. Tommy stared at her across the table, jaw clenched but silent. I sat between them, calm on the outside, but with a storm howling just beneath my ribs. "You can start whenever you're ready," I said. My voice was even. Controlled. She looked at me, eyes wet but not soft. Not the way mothers look at their sons. More like a woman realizing the cliff's edge was closer than she thought. "I did what I thought was right," she said. "Try again." She flinched. "I was young," she began, barely above a whisper. "And scared. Tommy and we didn't agree on anything anymore. He wanted to move to Bar. I had family in New Hampshire. Things got tense. Then we started fighting about everything. Where you'd go to preschool. Who would watch you when I worked? Who got to take you where?" She looked at Tommy, but he didn't blink. "We weren't married," she continued. "So when I found out he was seeing someone else, someone younger, I packed up and left. I didn't want to share you with someone I didn't know. Someone who would be around you more than me." "So you ran," I said flatly. "I protected you." "No," Tommy said. "You stole him." Her lips quivered. "You don't know what it's like, fighting for your child and realizing the court might side with the father. They always said you had more stability. You had a better job. You'd probably get shared custody. And I couldn't handle that. I wouldn't." "And Ron?" I asked. She hesitated. "He knew," she finally said. "I told him before we got serious. I told him the easiest thing to do was keep quiet. That it was cleaner that way." "Cleaner?" I asked. "You told a child his father was dead. You were better off," she snapped, then immediately looked like she regretted it. "I mean, by the time you were old enough to ask questions, we were settled. You had a roof. You had a home." I shook my head. "I had a garage and a man who barely looked at me unless he was angry." Silence fell like a guillotine. Tommy pushed his plate away. "I would have raised him, Denise. You didn't just rob me, you robbed him." She swallowed hard, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "I didn't know how to fix it." "You can't," I said, rising from the table. "You're not here for redemption. You're here because I let you walk into your own reckoning." I looked her in the eye, and from now on, I decide what family looks like. She didn't follow me when I left, because she knew the truth had done what I never could. It broke her. I didn't knock. I didn't call. I just slipped the letter through the slot in Denise's front door, sealed inside a plain white envelope with her name written in my careful, steady handwriting. No return address. No second chances. It wasn't the kind of letter people frame. It was the kind you keep buried in the back of a drawer, too ashamed to read again, too afraid to throw away. I didn't rant or accuse. I just told the truth. I told her I knew everything, about the lies, the silence, the betrayal that stretched over decades like a shadow I didn't know I'd been walking in. I wrote that I forgave her, not for her, but for me. Because I was done carrying her choices like they were mine to bear, and then I wrote the final line in ink that didn't shake. "From this moment on, I release you from my life. Whatever version of a mother you wanted to be, you had your chance. This is goodbye." I dropped it off on a Thursday. By Monday, Ron's mechanic shop, Ron's custom body, had a padlock on the door and a handwritten sign, "Closed until further notice." It never reopened. Rumor had it something went wrong with taxes. Others said a few customers filed complaints, and the state finally came down on him. I didn't care enough to dig. Let the truth or karma or whatever force had finally stirred in our little corner of Claremont take it from there. I had better things to focus on. Tommy and I bought a modest property just outside Brattleboro, a long-abandoned farmhouse with a wraparound porch and acres of overgrown land. It needed work, but so did we. We gutted the inside, painted every wall, and opened the doors to kids who knew what it felt like to be left behind. We called it Second Light. It started with cookouts and bonfires, little events where kids could just exist without being questioned. Then we added mentorship programs, weekend workshops, even quiet spaces for one-on-one conversations. Tommy handled the hands-on work. I handled the numbers, the branding, the future. We didn't talk about Denise or Ron. Not directly. But every nail we drove into a new doorframe, every light bulb we screwed into a room that hadn't known warmth in years, it was a kind of reply to them. This is what we built without you, one night. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I stood on the porch and watched 3 kids laughing as they roasted marshmallows by the fire pit. Tommy came up beside me, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. You ever think about what life might have been like if we'd had this from the start? He asked. I shook my head. Sometimes. But then I remember, we didn't. So we made it instead. And for once, there was nothing left to say, only peace, and the sound of laughter filling the place where silence used to live. It was the first Sunday of fall when I realized I didn't feel like a ghost anymore. The air was crisp, sharp with the scent of wood smoke and drying leaves. Kids chased each other through the open field behind Second Light, their laughter carrying across the trees like music. Tommy stood at the grill, flipping burgers like he'd done it 100 times, chatting with one of the volunteers. I leaned against the porch rail, coffee in hand, and just breathed. I was alive. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like I was carrying someone else's weight. I wasn't chasing a missing father or living under the rules of someone else's silence. I wasn't surviving. I was here. I'd thought revenge would feel like victory. Like a headline. Instead, it felt like stillness. Like walking into a room that used to hold pain and finding it warm, open, and filled with light. Denise never responded to the letter. She didn't need to. I hadn't written it to open a door, I'd written it to close one. For good. Ron disappeared right behind her, leaving behind a shuttered shop and a legacy no one would miss. But Tommy? He was here. He showed up. He helped build the bunkhouse out back when we expanded. He read to the younger kids at night when the volunteers were tired. He even helped a teenage boy fix up an old dirt bike from parts donated by neighbors. Every week, he showed up and reminded me that sometimes, the people who matter aren't the ones who raise you, but the ones who refuse to walk away. Hard to believe you ever doubted who you were, Tommy said to me one evening as we sat watching the fire crackle. I didn't doubt who I was, I replied quietly. I doubted who I was allowed to be. He nodded, understanding without needing the rest. That was the difference between him and everyone else in my past. He didn't demand explanations. He offered space. Second Light grew faster than we expected. What started as a quiet refuge for a few became a hub for healing. Stories poured in, kids shuffled from home to home, others who felt invisible in their own families. Some were angry, some were scared. But they all needed the same thing, belonging, and that's what we gave them. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but honestly. That was enough. I kept the DNA test in a drawer, tucked behind a stack of intake forms. Not because I needed to see it anymore. But because it reminded me how far I'd come, from a lie to a truth so loud it built a new future. I wasn't the kid in the garage anymore. I was a man with a name, a legacy, and a family of his choosing. The man they told me was dead had come back into my life, and with him, I found something better than revenge. I found me. If this story gripped your heart and kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more powerful true story narrations. Tell us in the comments, have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Your voice matters here. Let's talk about healing, truth, and reclaiming our stories, together.